Hello, and welcome back to the Pretty Passionate Podcast, your weekly group chat, well, mostly weekly group chat, where we get to discuss and dive deep into topics we are passionate about. So, this week, oh honey, for the third time since I married my government-employed husband, we are in the middle of a shutdown. So yay, and we're just navigating that. And for those of you who don't know how that works, basically what happens is that if you are a government employee and if you are considered an essential government employee like my beloved is, then you get to work for free until the government gets their crap together. So that's been an interesting little wrinkle for us lately. But this past weekend, we got to take the kids to this thing in Alabama. It's like a little, I guess I call it like a traveling exhibit. It's called Jurassic Quest. And they do set it up all over the country. And it's very cute. So my son, my youngest, he's 3, but he is encyclopedic about dinosaurs. He's passionate about dinosaurs. We call him our little paleontologist. And half of the time, I think he should be walking around in like a khaki short suit with like one of those wide brim hats because he just talks about dinosaurs like it's his career. And he loves other things too, but dinosaurs have a very special place in his heart. So we indulge him in ways that I feel like, my sister sent me a meme on Instagram that showed some kids playing in the water, like in the ocean, let's say, and there's a boat out away from the shore. And the writing on the caption just said, if when I was younger, I met my kids, I would think, wow, those are rich kids. And I just that resonated with me so much. If I can grab a screenshot of it, I will include it because man, oh man, our kids, right? Like I was born in the 80s. So, and my parents were, I guess we would say working class, but hardworking people, good savers, really excellent with a coin. I don't even know how they stretched their coins the way they did, but they did. But, we didn't eat out whenever on a whim. We didn't go to theme parks just on a whim, and definitely not multiple times a year and things like that. And sometimes my husband and I have to and we both grew up kind of similarly. So sometimes we have to step back and make sure we're not spoiling them while also indulging them and letting them enjoy the finer things in life that do ultimately help catapult them forward in life. Like one of the things that my parents did splurge on without discretion, like regardless of their budget, they spent to their maximum of their ability on our education. And that put us in a position, I feel very strongly that put us in a position to succeed in life later on. And all the other stuff is nice to have, but I'm pretty much just copying the formula because me and my sisters turned out pretty great. But anyway, the Jurassic Quest, it's in Birmingham, Alabama right now. I'm not sure how long it's going to be there. It might have just been for this weekend. The company is called Jurassic Quest, and they set it up with these animatronic dinosaurs all over this massive warehouse. It just looks like you kind of walked into it, like the lights are dim. They've got these banners up that simulate like jungle theme, and the soundtrack and everything is giving, and there's a little smoke machine, but very, very, very cool for the littles. I'm not going to say that a teenager would have an amazing time here. This is definitely for, in this day and age, since kids are so jaded, I'm going to say 10 and under, and someone who's very into dinosaurs, because they had some really cool displays. They had some dinos that we'd never seen before, and my son loved it. Although, since he's still only 3, my little pumpkin was a little afraid of the moving dinosaurs at first, and his sister kind of had to drag him along in the beginning, and then he warmed up. But totally, I think, wonderful for young children. I'd say the sweet spot is ages 3, if you have a precocious 3-year-old, between 3 and 10. And not only do they have the displays, which the kids get through those pretty quickly, they also have, if you buy the middle range ticket, access to all these other things, like a little fossil dig. They give you these little blocks that have where you can, and a little chisel. It's a little plastic chisel so the kids won't hurt themselves. And they're just basically chipping away at this block and trying to dig out fossils. And inside of the little white block of, I don't know what it is, plaster, I don't know. No, it can't be plaster. That would be way too hard. But anyway, it's something. And there's little shells and rocks and stuff inside of there. So they found that very exciting. And they feel like they actually now are the owners of real fossils. So. And then there's, of course, the obligatory bouncy castle. Actually, there's several of them for different age groups. And then a little dino ride. I feel like that's the only thing that I thought was kind of lame. Like the Ride a Dinosaur feature was, I mean, the kids enjoyed it. Again, that's why I'm saying the sweet spot. The age group is like 3 to 10 max. They enjoyed it, but the dino was moving like, so for those of you who are not watching video, he's moving very slowly. But, but for safety purposes, I understand it can't be like a bucking like bull at a bar somewhere. But yeah, that was the only could miss part. And there was also this really fun part where they had Legos set up. They had a simultaneous brick-tastic thing that wasn't huge, but it was just like a table with a bunch of Legos, which of course my kids love Legos, so that was a nice touch. And then there's a giant picture on the floor. It's like a mosaic of, I think, a T-Rex, let's say, scaling some rocks. And it's marked like a grid pattern. So we chose grid X11. There's a station that has a little small square of like how you need to put these flat Legos together on this one square in order to fit your piece into the mosaic, which the kids were extremely excited about. I don't know what they're actually going to do with it, but it would be cool to like hang it up. I think I would buy a piece that was like made collectively like that, and just like this massive, pretty mosaic that's giving like impressionist dinosaur. Anyway, very good times and not as expensive as going to the Georgia Aquarium, about less than half of the cost for a family of 4. So if it's coming to a city near you and you have kids who are into dinos, look into it. It's a fun afternoon. Also, I remember I mentioned a few weeks ago how like when I am doing surgery, I can't have my nails looking nice, which sucks, but sometimes I'm going to events or going to things or just want to look down and not see grubby nails. So I was going to try press-ons. So as you can see, I've got my claws back, and yet I'm still doing surgery. How? Well, because I went and got like the cheapest press-ons I could find just to try them. These are the Lee brand Impress, and they're glueless. And I specifically wanted to try these because they seemed like the easiest to just pop on and rip off whenever. So I put these on I think Friday evening after I got home from work. So they've only been on a couple of days. I can't vouch for like super long-term wear, but I will say I'm impressed. I'm impressed by how they are not just flipping off like Lee press-on nails from back in the day used to be. You could just flick those bad boys and injure people. They're kind of, it's a neutral with a design. I will say that the one criticism I have is I wish that they came in wider widths or a greater variety of widths. So it's like 30 nails in a pack. And if you have a wider nail bed, then you might struggle to find a perfect fit for every single finger. I will say that. So that would be my criticism. Maybe if they made like a 34 pack and these were like $9, I would be willing to pay another $1 for extended sizes so that you could have a more robust selection and also be able to do a full reapplication with all the sizes. Because as it stands, I had to use enough sizes where the whole pack, you can only do one. I guess that's the intention. But either way, my review is pretty strong. I'm not sure if you can hear this tippity tapping, but I was able to type, wash dishes, handle my very active children, eat and everything. They are not as watertight as you would have with like an acrylic or the après gel, where the gel is kind of sealing all along the edges. So that would be my other caution, is I don't think you should wear them long term because you could get water trapped under them and that can lead to nail infections. So me personally, like 3-4 days max. I kept them on today just to show you guys. But since I have surgery this week, they will be coming off by tomorrow. But super fun. Lee Impress, Impress. No, they're not sponsoring me, but I wouldn't mind if they did. And I would give them a few pointers on what I think could get better. Not a manicurist, but definitely a nail enthusiast. But for $9, if you're just trying to go to like a party and you're like me and you sometimes just don't have the extra well-placed 2 hours to go and get your nails done at a salon, push some cuticles, file some nails, pop these bad boys on. 25 minutes tops, like less than 30 minutes. You're ready to go. And I would not want someone to be like closely examining them for imperfections. But, for an event, And from this distance, from a conversational distance, they're pretty solid. I'll pop a closer picture in right after I put them on. But anyway, enough about press-on nails. But I just wanted to update you guys because I said I would. And because I had a good experience doing this, I'm going to try now. I'm going to actually bother to invest in a pricier set and see if there's any difference and let y'all know. Because we're all about beauty maintenance for us busy moms, busy ladies, people who still want to look like we didn't just fall out of the bed, but don't necessarily have hours and hours to put into it. That's a cool shortcut. Okay, so Love is Blind is back. I know I totally forgot about Love is Blind, which I tend to do in between seasons. Like, I just finished the UK one, and I wasn't, like, looking for the Denver one, but it just popped up on my TV. And because I don't know, this show has a chokehold on me emotionally. I just really enjoy it and can't just put it down forever. I know people who have checked out forever and they're just not interested after the 2020 rush and the Lauren and Cameron of it all, like not seeing those couples easily replicated given the wide awareness in the public of this show. You know, you definitely get some fakers on here who just want to be reality TV stars and spin that off into Instagram or TikTok fame. But I think I'm also seeing a pattern where the people who are on here obviously doing that don't actually get to be as successful as they maybe endeavored to be, because their disingenuousness in my view leads to just such widespread unpopularity that they're not actually able to spin it quite as well as they'd like to. You know, maybe they get a couple thousand followers, but it's not the tidal wave of millions of followers just falling in love with you that one we saw with the first season for just about all the participants, and then two, like, for all subsequent seasons that we see for people who were very popular, who are very genuine. You know, not everybody's going to be like an AD up here, you know, but they come along. And anyway, that's not the reason I watch it. I watch it because I just really love, and I love to actually see the genuine couples that come out. So I will admit that sometimes the pod process can get a little sappy and annoying, and just, you know, there are parts I have to fast forward through. But for the most part, it's still entertaining. I think some of the enduring popularity is because dating is still such a minefield, and it's nice to see people fall in love. Even if you're not dating, like me, then it's just nice to kind of reminisce about the butterflies when you were initially meeting your person and falling in love and how that feels. And even though it's like a weird little accelerated experiment, I do think these people do have genuine feelings. Like, some of them are crazy, but some of them do have genuine feelings, and they go on to successful relationships. And I'll tell you this, if the divorce rate was like 100% of these couples, like if they literally just always fell apart, if their marriages never lasted, they probably would never get me to tune in. That's how I feel about those game show relationships. They're not worth investing time in most of the time. But, you know, we'll see about, I guess, Nick and Alandria is probably the most recent and well-known game show couple. But unlike those game shows, there's a decent success rate. Love is Blind UK was horrific, but in the US, there's a decent success rate that keeps me interested, because it's like, yeah, some real couples do come out of this. So anyway, the new singles are very interesting. We do have some standouts as always, and some straight up surprises out of left field that I think we may even have like a couple of Love is Blind firsts. But yeah, that's enough about my continued fascination with this. Let's get into it. I think the best way to go about discussing this by like the first couple of episodes, because I think they did like a 6-episode dump, or maybe I missed the first release. And then, so I just suddenly had 6 episodes all up on my Netflix. And they're going to be releasing newer episodes this week, but it seems like they're probably going to do them in like 2 more batches, because Netflix likes to drag it out and keep those subscription numbers up. And they probably get a little bump when they release a US-based Love is Blind. So we can talk about it by just stuff that stood out first couple of episodes, and then we'll be able to focus on like each couple as they pair off and go to their, to Baja is their paradise location. So first, we have a rapid engagement. Anton and Ali, she goes by Ali, very cute couple. I was happy that they seemed to bond over a mutual experience or a shared experience of immigrating to the United States, which is understandable. Like, it's very realistic that you meet someone through that glass who is able to deeply understand how it felt to leave your home country, come here as a child. They both immigrated at the same age at 8, her from Brazil, him from Russia. And so, and learning English from scratch and dealing with like the teasing and stuff and having that ethnically common family, close familial ties and all that, I think played into why they just so rapidly were like, boom, right onto each other. And it seems to be working out. She is a complete smoke show. I mean, the girl is attractive. That's unquestionable. And him, I find him more of like an up close and personal get to know him attractive, but that's just my opinion. But handsome. And I think together they make a really cute couple. And so when they have their reveal, I think they're genuinely like attracted to each other. And we also discover his eyes are green, which she didn't know. I mean, well, she didn't know. He didn't tell her, obviously. But, yeah, they're deep set, so you really can't tell. But when like they interview him with light on him, you can see. And he's a good looking guy, but she's probably the more attractive one in the pair. But I think they share a mutual attraction, which is really important. And we won't see that for everybody in subsequent reveals. So, okay, for stuff that's happening, I'm just going to kind of rapid fire like stream of consciousness as I'm watching episode by episode stuff that stood out. So, I'm going to Anna. Frickin' Anna. What to say about Anna? Like, I thought this girl was like confident. She knows who she is. She seems like she really, made a great match with Patrick to her surprise. And I can understand why for each of them, dating Asian people had not happened naturally in Denver, Colorado. But then she has this random meltdown in the women's quarters after having an amazing date with Blake. So there she is with like literally 2 great options, one of whom is coming from a demographic she's never dated before, but has so much in common with. She's Chinese. Patrick is Chinese Cambodian. Blake is a white guy. That's her typical who she dates. She kind of has some decisions to make, but none of them seem like bad decisions, And somehow she got scared off. I can't wait for like that bar or party reunion that they do with the entire cast, the whole pod squad, because I really want to know what happened. She gave no preamble except this one tearful moment with one of the other women in the women's quarters. My only guess is that she alluded to one thing briefly in her confessional that I think she was like, it was getting real. Having those 2, narrowing it down to those 2 top choices and those guys kind of getting very serious about her, I think she started to worry about the reveal. And although she calls herself confident, I mean, I think she understands that she's curvy, so maybe that's something she's dealt with in her dating life. I'm just guessing here. She never said it out loud. But I feel like the hint she made about, I feel like I'm reasonably attractive, but kind of thing, made me wonder if that was what's behind her just like up and running away. But we'll find out. So that's going to be in the second batch, I think, of episodes. Oh, no, definitely. Because, yeah, the next batch is kind of them settling in the apartments and then that's when they do the whole pod squad reunion. I can't wait to see. And the preview at the end of episode 6 actually hints that we're going to get to the bottom of it. But since we're talking about Anna, let's next talk about Patrick. He is seemingly a nice guy. Like, I really appreciated his openness about why he's even in the experiment, right? He is mixed race, Chinese Cambodian, and he talks about how that was so difficult growing up in Denver, being the only Asian guy in the room all the time. I bet that got to be exhausting, I always wonder sometimes why parents do this, but I know it's like always for better opportunity, and sadly, oftentimes the better opportunities are in predominantly white neighborhoods where the better schools are, or sometimes jobs or what have you. But oh my gosh, I know many don't have a choice, but man, I wish they knew sometimes, especially immigrant parents. I think they're a little bit less aware of the implications because a lot of them have never been in that situation of being like the only, be it Asian or Haitian or Nigerian or whatever in the room. They come from a place where they are immersed. And so they don't understand the trauma that can happen at an early childhood level of being the only one of your ethnicity or race in a room. Like, I remember when I was looking for my kids' school, we live in Georgia and we live in the country. So I was just particularly focused on making sure that my kids would not be pioneers in any way, shape, or form. So that was a huge factor for me, knowing that there would have several other Black classmates, that the school had Black teachers and administrators and people at all levels who resemble my kids. It's just not a fun thing as a developing child. So I really felt Patrick's pain. When we moved to the district I graduated from in New Jersey, it's probably like maybe 60, 70% white and 30% like everything else, but mostly like Black and Latino and Asian or whatever. And this was 1992, and the demographics have shifted a ton. But in the beginning, it was challenging. Probably not as bad as Patrick dealt with, being the only Asian kid in his class. But there wasn't a lot of us in the classes that I was placed in, maybe one or two more. And I have to say, the sensitivity just wasn't there. It wasn't, people were not aware of certain things, or maybe they didn't care. I remember being compared to Whoopi Goldberg when I got braids. When I got like my hair braided with extensions, and I was so happy because like it was so easy to style and, would cut out some of my hair prep. But then like I was just interviewed about it so much. Like, so wait, does your mom braid your hair every morning? Like, how long does that take? Those kinds of questions. And then, well, if it's not done every day, then when are you washing your hair? Can you wash it like that? Wait, I don't understand how you can wash it and the braids will stay. Is this all your hair? Blah, 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 blah. So just needless to say, it got exhausting and embarrassing because as a 11-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl, you just want to fit in. You just want to literally blend into the background or be noticed for something good, but nothing else, right? So I really feel Patrick on this. I get that little pain point for him. And I think for him, it continued, which is terrible. Like once I made some friends, especially some Black friends in my district, things got a million times better. And then it just kind of felt like just a utopia of all the races blending. And to this day, it's like a very diverse community. But for Patrick, Denver kind of remained majority white. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, and also Patrick has the thing going for him as an Asian male in Hollywood and pop culture where they have not been very kind to Asian men. It's gotten way better thanks to that K-pop wave, among many other sort of social changes or pressures. I mean, hello, young Mazzino. That's just a video. You know the one I'm talking about. That's all I'm going to say as a very happily married woman. But that said, I think he lets his insecurities get the better of him too. Like, yes, I understand where you're coming from, but he is very wrapped up, I think, in being validated by a partner. I get the sense that if that partner who gives him a chance and validates him also happens to be white, there's a certain level of his inner child, let's say, or his inner adolescent that would feel vindicated, validated, healed by like, okay, great, to be chosen by someone of that ethnic group. I don't know, it's an interesting psychology going on there. But when Anna left, he was devastated, which goes to show you he is interested in other ethnicities. He's just not had a lot of ethnic diversity to choose from where he's at. And then he just goes like head first for Casey. And I was like, oof. Like it was like a switch, to get over the devastation of Anna ghosting him. Immediately, he's all eyes on Casey. And I could obviously tell that was not genuine feeling so much as him putting a Band-Aid on his emotions. And he had something to prove, like regarding his feelings that like, okay, well, I tried to get with a Chinese girl and she rejected me. So back to what I'm familiar with. And she's into me. Because there was a point where a producer was interviewing him about, he's like, oh, we're on the same page about so many things, Casey, and it was like meant to be and all this. And they're like, what are you on the same page about? And he draws a complete blank. And I know that can happen with the interview lights on you, but it doesn't happen much. Usually when you're like genuinely into someone and you feel like we have so much in common, you just rattle off all the things they have in common that's wonderful about the person. But he couldn't. So in some sense, I think he wasn't being totally honest with himself about the switch to All About Casey. But more on Casey later, though. So, okay, Sparkle Megan. What a nickname. Can I be real? At first, I hated Sparkle Megan. She just struck me as this like really stuck up kind of person. And I'm sure she gets that a lot in her life, but she didn't help her case by leading with, I'm so successful that like people just hate me and men are intimidated by me. Like it just, I mean, that's not her voice, but it just, that's what it gave. Like, it's just so annoying. And I felt like she was doing that thing a few seasons ago where this guy was like, I hate when women are after me because of my wealth, and then proceeding to lead with your wealth in every single pod encounter where somehow your wealth and your level of success comes up. Ill-advised. Ill-advised if you don't want someone to be after you for your wealth. You should probably like only talk about money with pertinent things like, how do you feel about debt? How do you feel about real estate? What do you do for a living? And, you know, what's your ideal of a comfortable financial situation? There are ways to fish out important information from a person without being like, oh, I'm a plastic surgeon and I just do like really well for myself financially. You know what I'm saying? Like they call me Sparkle Ruth and like I have all this bling and like, it's just like, calm down, girl, calm down. And her focus like on Mike and Jordan, who end up being her two ultimate choices because her third, Blake, drops out. Another ghoster. I feel like that's a first in Love is Blind history. But like her focus on the fact that she was concerned that Jordan didn't have the same lifestyle as her, it really reveals like this is part of your problem in the real world in terms of dating. Like trying to get a perfect socioeconomic match with someone who is also unafraid of being with an alpha female. You know, I get it. As an alpha female in a male-dominated field, in a non-Black dominated field, I do well for myself in my career. I so understand her being attracted to the kind of man like Mike portrays himself to be, where, you know, in the outside world, he's moving, he's shaking, he's traveling, he's bragging about all, you know, his worldly goods. Yeah, you know, there definitely is a part of you that will be drawn to that because you'll feel like you found your match. But in the pod, you're supposed to be shaking it up a little bit. So, and keeping it different from what you do out in the wild, you know? And it feels like she was not sold on Jordan until he mentioned, like, yeah, and I do okay. It's just that I'm more focused on my son. And then he mentioned Gucci loafers. And, like, you can literally see her brighten up at the mention of Gucci shoes that he bought himself. She was just like, oh, tell me more. Which I guess I should give her points for honesty, but it was kind of superficial. You know, but whatever. Side note, how do you guys feel about Jordan not mentioning off rip that he has a quadrillion tattoos? Because this is not like a casual tattoo guy. You know, he's got the full arm sleeves on both sides and a full leg sleeve, like all the way up, because we've seen him in shorts. And she asked him about tattoos and eventually even mentions that she had tattoos that she got as a teenager and then she had them removed. And so I feel like he should, in my opinion, it would have been smart to be transparent about that, because what if she abhors tattoos now? You know, you already know she's kind of pinky zip. She's kind of, you know, snooty a little bit. And then you're hearing her express like tattoos are okay, but I had mine removed. I think it would have been smarter and safer to let her know, because it does convey a certain look, a certain lifestyle, a certain attitude that might not be ideal for her. Call me old-fashioned. I think tats are great. I have one myself because it hurt. But I think they're great. But I also think that his are too much for me. I would find them to be too many because there's just so much skin coverage. But it's just weird that he repeatedly lied to her or fibbed or tried to be cute and coy about it instead of just saying like, yeah, I'm really into tattoos and I have a lot of art, but when I'm fully clothed, you actually can't see it. Like something like that, you know? But we'll see. Okay. Another standout, obviously, Edmund. What an interesting human being Edmund is. He seems very sweet and genuine, and his story is very touching right from the beginning. How could you not like get a little allergy attack while he explained his childhood and why his heart is so open trying to find love? And the fact that he has a good relationship with his mother after all of that childhood turmoil, you know, he's got to be a kind-hearted person. And then with Calabria, also such a sweet, sweet lady. Like, what a beautiful soul, I think. I just don't detect any, grossness in her. Nobody's perfect, but she does remind me of AD, not gonna lie. And I'm like, were you guys the casting producers? Were y'all looking for another AD, just like a sweet, sweet girl who, curvaceous black girl, just to fit that role because AD was so wildly popular? I don't know. But either way, Calabria is actually a social worker. So immediately I'm like, ding, 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 great fit because they understand so much about each other. So, naturally they pair off pretty early, and I think she's going to be very understanding. I predict like a lot of understanding and being able to work with him in terms of his personality. I say that because, oh my God, this man, his energy is on a 20 if everyone else is on a 10 or lower. Like, I don't know. I can see why in the real world he might have trouble in a relationship because he dresses kind of loud and quirky, and that's not a big deal. Because I think there are people who would really be drawn to that and see it as like he's just had an independent sense of fashion in his style, and that's attractive. But the jumping about, like he has got just so much energy, was interesting. He jumped over a couch. He's jumping down the hall. He's jumping. He's laying on the floor, putting his face on the floor. It's weird. He's got some stuff going on that, I mean, I'm not going to put a diagnosis on it or anything, but I know that in the real world, if he's putting that on display on a first date, is like a lot of people will be out the door. So this is a great situation for him. Calabria seems like a very like patient person. And so they get engaged. The reveal is super cute. And I'm like, okay, genuine chemistry. I can sense that they're attracted to each other. And, I'm like, okay, let's see how this plays out. Some more on them in Mexico. Okay. Anyone else watching struggling to tell Annie and Kate apart? Like, for real. I'm serious. Like, they have the blonde, big, huge blonde coiffed hair. Annie's a salon owner. Let's just say, as the stereotype goes, some salon owners, some hairstylists, for some reason, their hair is never like, on point. The only person I've seen on television who's like, I'm a salon owner, besides like Tabitha or people like that who, have been on TV for years. The only people who like, she came on TV and I was like, I can tell, was like Angie K from the Housewives of Utah, of Salt Lake City, that I was like, she started talking about being a salon owner and I was like, well, that makes sense. That's some perfect hair. It's just beautiful. But yeah, like, I don't know, between Kate and Annie, similar round-shaped face, similar laugh lines. Like, y'all know I study faces. And I just feel like they look a lot alike. Not that that's a problem. Obviously, this is an experiment through a wall. But I just thought it was like really hilarious in terms of the casting producers. Like, okay. You guys didn't have those side-by-sides and think, okay. But things don't really work out for Kate in the end. She actually kind of misses the boat with Nick, kind of leaves him on herd when he says, I love you, which may have been too early for her. But also they have a huge divide when it comes to religion. He initially is like all sneaky about it. He's like, oh yeah, I'm low key, like light religious. Lies. Complete lies. And there's nothing wrong with that. I am very much a practicing Christian and would consider myself a devout Christian. But it's like he tried to soften it to not sound crazy. And I can see why he might do that, because people are very judgmental about being a Christian or practicing whatever your religion is. But it's really important in this situation to be very transparent. So he's like, oh yeah, I'm like super like okay about religion. She tells him about this horrific event in her life that turned her essentially toward atheism, maybe being agnostic, but probably atheism, like an active belief that there is no God, because her mother died very painfully from cancer. And you can identify with that. You can definitely empathize with that. And even as a Christian, you can understand and remember, certain times in your life that you have wondered, like where God is, what is going on, so there was a part of me that just my heart felt for her. But him and his were a little religious, and then coming back to that in another discussion, because initially he was very understanding of her expression about that, but then he comes back to it like, would you be open to I guess, attending church, exploring religion again. And she's like, no, I told you, like, I don't believe there's a God because of what I went through with my mother. And he's like, well, in order to not believe there was a God, there had to have been a time in your life when you believed there was a God. So I was just wondering if there was a path for you back to that. It was a very confusing messaging. I understand why he felt that way. There had to be a preceding belief, maybe not a practice of religion, but maybe a preceding belief in a higher power. And then after that experience for her and her brother, they just were like, nope, not possible. I can see how he maybe made that leap, but it was a leap nonetheless. Like when someone explains something to you that clearly and is that straightforward about it, I think you can't like usher them back to religion. You can't pressure them back to religion just because you are. I think your best bet if you're a religious person is not to be with someone like that, in my opinion. Not because there's anything wrong with them, but because inevitably it will come up as an issue at some point, be it how we're going to raise the kids or just like our belief system as a family will be challenged by a practicing Christian marrying an atheist. So I don't know why he felt the need to do that, because it's just not what you should do. You should not marry someone that you would like to convert, no matter what your religion is. I mean, that's just such a crazy idea. I don't understand why people do that when there are plenty of people who share your faith that you can probably link up with. Why? It's just such an uphill battle. But anyway, so they call it quits. Nick quickly moves on to Annie, who, lucky for him, that's pretty much an even exchange on the physical appearance front. And then both beautiful girls, by the way, I should say. And they end up getting engaged, and we get to follow their connection. I have to say I don't find them that exciting of a couple, so I don't have much else to say about them after they've paired off, So because this is a pretty dense drop, I have split my commentary between 2 episodes just for the ease of editing. So I'm going to kind of stop it at episode 4-ish, which is where we are right now in terms of everything that's happened. And then we'll pick up immediately, not in a few days, but immediately as files go, with episodes 4-ish, 5, and 6. And then we'll be all caught up and breathlessly waiting for the episodes that are going to be released on Wednesday. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. Look for Love is Blind Denver, episodes 1 through 6, part 2 coverage, which will be posted shortly.